Today we are looking at a pretty cool Rook 9 gameplay. This is also a bit of a throwback one. We're currently on King 2 at the moment, and we're looking at the Goblin Gamble. So this is something that I like playing every now and again when the opportunity arises. But in this instance, we really struggle to pick up that Devastator. And I want to show you the impact that that can make if you don't manage to pick that unit up and get your 6 Goblin synergy. So without further ado, hope you guys enjoy it, and let's jump straight into the gameplay.
Have you seen Gawk at 4 o'clock?
Alrighty, so we start off pretty standard. I think generally Goblins is a good starting point when you are going into the creep rounds. If you can get Goblin synergy or Mech synergy and get your HP and armor stuff increased, it's definitely helpful. I don't really think there's a stronger synergy in the opening rounds than if you can get maybe a 2-star Ripper or a 2-star Skybreaker, or any 2 stars really in the Goblin category, with the exception maybe of Heaven Bomber. And in this instance we're quite fortunate because we actually pick up in our first shop, we pick up the 2-star Skybreak and the 2-star Soulbreaker. So within the first 2 rounds we already have a 2-star unit, and that's a really powerful position to be in. You can see there, as we were scouting, we're the only ones who have a 2-star unit at this stage of the game, and that's pretty exciting for us. It means that we can have a strong start, and at this stage you're already thinking now, should we not be pushing into some sort of a win streak? Hopefully we can pick up other Goblin units to complement the one that we have on the board. And as you can see, we immediately pick up 3 more Goblins. And that's great for us because now we have the full synergy that we can get at this stage of the game, which is your 2 mech and 3 Goblin synergy. So we're halfway through the synergy, and at this stage we might be considering Goblin Gamble if we pick up more of these units as the early rounds progress. We can see by scouting that we have a warrior team and some divinities as well. No one running as strong a Goblin comp as we are at this stage of the game. And generally you'll find quite a lot of people in the lobby running Goblins in the beginning because they can branch out into various different directions. But I don't think that anyone had sort of as much of a stable setup as we did at this stage of the game. I pick up the Ripper here, and Heaven Bomber, unless you have mana crystals, is probably not as strong as the other 2. So you maintain synergies by keeping Ripper on, or putting Ripper on and keeping Skybreaker on. But taking Heaven Bomber off makes sense because you now have the most, or the strongest comp that you can have at this stage, excluding obviously the idea of quality and the number of stars that your units have. So if you take that and put that aside, the 3 units that we have on the board are really strong. And as you can see on the other board, we're winning quite comfortably against the other teams. And this is great news for us because it puts us into a potential winning streak level, and that's exactly what we want at this stage of the game. There was an evil knight there, a hell knight in the shop, which I could have picked up as well. And based on the fact that we had the econ to do so, it would probably have made sense to do that, just in case we stop getting Goblins and we want to try and branch into a different composition. You always want to keep your options open. So there was an opportunity there with a strong piece like a Hell Knight to move into Knights or some sort of Knight composition. So it would have made sense to pick that up. I do pick up the 2 Desperate Doctors and the Shining Dragon, which opens the potential for similar strats. I mean, if we move into a Mage strat, into a Dragon strat, that then becomes useful. Obviously Glacier Knights as well from a Desperate Doctor perspective. You could even look at Glacier Warriors, and you could even look at Knight Mages or Dragon Mages as well. Okay. Cool, so having a look at what the other guys I've got, again, we've got basically 4 warrior comps that we need to look out for there. So that's definitely something to consider. when you are scouting about is to understand how strong are the guys getting. Are they getting strong really quickly? If they are getting strong and you're not managing to get upgrades on your team, it's definitely something that you need to consider to move out of that quite quickly. You need to power surge your team either by getting level 2 upgrades, so by rolling down, or by leveling up and putting additional pieces on the board, which you can see we do in this instance. So although our econ is sitting on 0, we actually are fortunate enough to find another Ripper, and we put that on, which means that our team is still quite strong. And for the next couple of rounds, our team should be in a reasonable position. It would be nice if we could pick up the 2-star Ripper. That would make us really, really strong, but we should be okay, I think, at this stage. This guy does have the 2-star Red Axe, and that's tricky. Also, the Swordman is always a nightmare, but as you can see, even with the Werewolf that he had at this early stage of the game, we managed to overcome that. So I'm pretty happy with where we are. We're having a look around there to see who we faced on their board, and we just missed out on that one. There was potential here as well, and I think that's why we're thinking about this. Do we go into Assassins? So you can see Goblin Assassins is definitely a usable composition if you manage to pick up the right pieces, and because we already have a position here where we could have 3 different Assassins in there and get our Assassin synergy immediately, that's a pretty powerful potential switch. So we could have hard switched there, or maybe not hard switch, but definitely added or branched into the Assassin synergy. Yeah, so we're still doing pretty well here. You can see we're in a reasonably comfortable position. We are winning matches quite comfortably. To win by 4 units at this stage of the game when you only have 5 on the board is definitely a good place to be. And we actually picked up not only our 2-star Ripper, but a couple more of the same assassins that we already have on the bench. So that's looking like there could be potential there. I'm not sure if I've noticed it yet, but we are 1 player short. Okay, there we go. So we put on an assassin. I think, look, Water Spirit, none of the assassins really, none of the 1-cost assassins are extremely strong. I think Water Spirit is 2-cost. But without any sort of maybe another spirit piece on the board to get that synergy, it's not an extremely useful tool at this stage of the game. That being said, if it does get its ult off, that's always nice because it hits multiple people. But generally I'd prefer to have a spirit synergy of some sort happening if I was going to put that unit on. But it fills the 5th space, and I think that's what's the most important. So at least we didn't have 4 out of 5 players on the board. We get our second Desperate Dock, which is great. We skip out on the Dwarf Sniper, which means that we're definitely not going to look into going Hunters. But that's definitely, if you are thinking Hunters, that's one of your key pieces. So if I was considering that as a branch in this game, or in this match, I would definitely have picked that up. Okay, but it looks like we're really considering assassins here. You'll notice that I still keep in the Shining Dragon because we've now also picked up the Venom, which means that if we're looking into a dragon synergy of some sort, we have that option available because we already have 2 of the 3 dragons that we need for that synergy. Our team's still pretty strong. You can see we're winning games. It's a little bit closer in as much as, although we have 4 units still on the board, on our board, their health or their HP was substantially lower than how we've been winning on the previous games. So that's something to consider as well. That's another way that you can tell whether or not your comp is actually working out. We had a bit of lag in the game at this stage, so apologies for that. I think it will shoot back and find itself in a moment, and there it does. And at this stage, I mean, we could have picked up the Flaming there as well. The Flaming Wizard's always useful if you are going to consider going into a mage comp. We do already have Shining Dragon, but at this stage, I think we're not definitively moving into assassins, but it's definitely something that we're considering at this stage. Okay, as we move into rock golems, I'm sure the lag will fix itself now. we're reasonably comfortable. I don't think we're expecting to lose this round. Our guys are pretty strong with the 2-star units that you have, especially the Desperate Doctor. Desperate Doctors are very useful in the Rock Golem rounds because of their ultimate that bounces across the multiple units, and Rock Golems tend to be clustered quite closely. So definitely a useful piece to throw in there. And that won us that round quite comfortably. Okay. So we're on a win streak now. We're on quite a substantial win streak. I'm not sure why we're having lag. I must just check if the recording maybe was a bit funny. But yeah, we pick up the Shadow Devil, and the reason we pick him up is to get Warlock synergy. He's not extremely useful. He's useful in the early game because he's got a very high DPS if you position him correctly. But at this stage of the game, he starts losing a little bit of his effectiveness because he's not extremely strong unless you have him at a 2-star level. That being said, we do have a pretty strong Desperate Doctor on the board. And by throwing in the Warlock synergy, that just gives us a little bit of extra oomph. And I feel like Desperate Doctor or Warlock synergy in general is a strong complementary synergy to have with Goblins and Mechs. So you'll find a lot of guys who are trying the gamble will use a Warlock as a sort of secondary level synergy to complement the Goblin Mech synergy. Ideally though, we'd probably throw in either a mythical level creature, so maybe something like a Ghost Prophet would probably do well, or maybe even a Dark Spirit, but at this stage we won't be running into any of those, so a Soul Reaper would also work, and in this instance we're obviously using the Shadow Devil, and that seems to be okay. So our win streak is now quite substantial. I think we're on an 8 streak at the moment, which is nice and high. It's exactly where we want to be. And at this stage, we haven't been picking up a lot of assassins. So I think it was at this stage that the call was made to move away from a Goblin Assassin build and go sort of straight into a full Goblin gamble with a Warlock as a secondary synergy. That being said, if you are looking to push Goblin Gamble from the beginning of the game, I think it's really important that you try and level up a bit more slowly. The idea is that at the lower levels, your percentage chance of picking up the units that you require is much higher. As you start leveling up, you actually reduce your chance of picking up the units that you want for a Goblin Gamble, especially your early units. So that's your Skybreaker, your Heaven Bomber, your Soulbreaker, and your Ripper. As you get a bit higher, Ripper is still okay, but as you get a bit higher, you'll find your Venomancer, and eventually, once you get to like level 8, 9, you can actually pick up the Devastator. But until that stage, once you get there, your likelihood of picking up your original smaller pieces are going to actually be reduced. So just be careful of that. Try and level up much slower as far as possible without without losing all your matches if you're going Goblin Gamble. In this instance, we leveled up reasonably quickly, and I think the reason is because we were on the win streak and wanted to maintain that win streak. So it's a bit of a balancing game, it's a bit of a balancing act, and I think that at this stage we're still okay. Our Econ's in a decent position, as you can see, compared to the rest of the board, except for Like Off at the bottom, but he was running a losing streak. So we're running a win streak. We've managed to pick up a lot of the pieces that we require, which is great news for us. We've also leveled up to level 7 earlier than the rest of the group, which is exactly what we'd want to be doing. So we sacrifice a little bit more of the Econ, but we managed to pick up more units onto the board and strengthen our party so that we can maintain that win streak. Sorry. Okay, Wolfpack. So we reposition. Wolfpack, for those of you guys who don't know, the Wolves are assassin style players, so they will jump to the back line. So you always want to position your stronger units at the back. and your squishier units or your ranged units actually in the front of the board. I like positioning them to the left, something I learned from Chaos Squirrel. They have sort of this T shape on the left hand side that they try and build, and that tends to work quite well. And as a result of that, you can see when the wolves jump to the back, our two squishy, or I call them squishy, but our shadow devils at the back, our ranged units, are able to not take any damage, and our front hard line actually takes all the damage, and it works out really successfully for us. So that's just something that you can do for Wolfpack. It also helps now our econ's in a good place, so we're sitting on 44. Alright, so we pick up our 2-star Shadow Devil. Shadow Devil is definitely going to be a piece that we would look to replace at some stage, unless we get him or decide to get him to level 3. But as it stands right now, the fact that we've leveled him up to 2-star means we have an extra space on the board, and so we throw a Ripper on there. Because of the ones we have on the bench, we don't have really anything great to replace him with, and so we have to pick the strongest piece that we have if we're not going to be changing synergies or anything, and in this instance that's the Ripper. Our team is still pretty strong. We've got a lot of 2-stars. If you compare and see what the other teams are running, we're actually in a good place. So there's us on the other board, that's on Neutron's board, and we actually are pushing through a lot of these players quite comfortably. However, and this is the big thing with goblins, as you get into the mid to late game, goblins reduce or they lose their strength. They're definitely not as strong as they are in the early rounds. As teams start strengthening up in the lobby, you'll find that it's far more difficult to actually maintain your win streak with goblins. They lose their effectiveness quite quickly. So you really need to rush and push for 3-star units as soon as you can, because you really need that tankiness as you move into the later game. So here's probably a reasonable example. I think this team still has quite a few 1-stars, so that's okay. But if they had more 2-star units, we might actually have struggled in this round, because they're running a warrior synergy. But we are still winning on the boards, so that's okay. We're pretty comfortable. I mean, it's still a 5 or 6 person victory, and that makes sense to us. We're in a happy place with that. But we definitely want to be, now at this stage of the game, we want to be making sure we can push 3-star units, and we also want to try and level up as quickly as we can, because the sooner we can get to level 8, 9, we will be able to pick up the Devastator, and the Devastator is the make or break for this composition. If you don't have the Devastator here and get your 6/6 synergy on goblins, you have a very good chance that you're not going to win the match, and I think that's kind of the gamble. That's why it's called the gamble. If you've watched my previous Goblin Gamble video, in that instance I think we managed to pick up the Devastator reasonably early, and in that instance it was an absolute game changer, and you'll see the difference in strength when you have 5 out of 6 goblins compared to when you have 6 out of 6 goblins. It's sort of night and day. It absolutely makes your team super strong the minute you get that last goblin in. It's a phenomenal synergy to have, probably one of the strongest in the game. Some people might fight me on that one, but I think it's probably one of the strongest in the game, and so definitely worth the gamble if you get it right. Okay, cool. So now we are jam packing our bench here. The idea is that we really want to pump 3-star units. So one might argue at this stage we could actually have pushed to level 8 already, because we do have a 2-star Ripper on the bench. We have a 2-star Heaven Bomber that we could throw on, and it's only going to cost us 10 econ to level up. So what we don't want to do is be losing rounds now, and as you can see now we're up against a pretty strong team. They've got 2-star units, quite a lot of them, and it is warriors, so you can see already this is a much closer round, and there is the potential that we lose this, because Desperate Doctor and Shadow Devil, once they're alone, are a little bit squishier. Fortunately, we still have our Ripper and our Soulbreaker that manages to survive. So they pull us through that round, but it's definitely getting to a point of concern where we need to start wondering, you know, should we not actually just rather take the level up. You'll see there was a Soul Reaper as well that we could have picked up. I think knowing that we're probably going to get rid of Shadow Devil at this stage, you can see we had one on the bench, so we were considering a 3-star Shadow Devil, but I think picking up the Soul Reaper might have made more sense if we then sold the spare one that we have on the bench and at least put him there as a backup in case we decide to get rid of our Shadow Devil. That would probably have been a better play there. That being said, we were maintaining Econ because it's a creep round, so we were trying to keep above 60, and the idea of that, we're already on a huge win streak. We don't need to be too greedy with our cash, and possibly we are being a bit greedy with it, but we do get the extra interest based on that. I think actually from 50 interest you don't get additional. I think it stops at 5. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong on that one. But the idea is now we get to roll quite a lot, so we're rolling down as much as we can. We've already leveled to level 8, and the idea now is we get some 3-star units, and we get our first 3-star unit. That's the Soul Breaker, and that's exciting news for us. By moving to level 8 and by getting the 3-star Soul Breaker, we've opened up 2 spots, and so we throw in our last 2 units onto the board. But now that we've reached level 20, this is where it starts becoming a lot closer. You'll see we're still climbing through a lot of these teams, and I think that's predominantly because we have 2 3-star units on the board already, that being Heaven Bomber and Soul Breaker. And we don't pick up the Shadow Devil here, it looks like, so I'm assuming we make the call not to go 3-star. We'll see now if we pick it up, but there is a Venomancer there, and we definitely want the Venomancer. So we pick that up, which is good news for us because we're definitely going to be using that. And we pump our little bit, or $5 into our economy. The idea is we still want to push up to level 9 at this stage, because at level 9 your chance of picking up Devastator is even higher than at level 8. We have great econ at the moment, so if we do get to level 9 and we roll down, we should definitely pick up Devastator somewhere along the line. It would be quite unfortunate for us if we didn't. That being said, it is a 5-cost unit, and running into 5-cost units is always difficult. The problem we have is that at this stage the other teams are going to start getting stronger, and we could quite comfortably and quite easily lose our win streak if we don't be careful. You can see here on this board, this is Alex Lave, who's in 2nd position. We only win by 1 unit, and that's when you need to start thinking and getting worried. Is this going to be, the way to go, or are we in a difficult position? The other nice thing, if we had picked up Soul Reaper, is that you could actually get the Agassiz and the Warlock synergy if you find a Ghost Prophet, which we found now. Now we skipped over a couple of Soul Reapers, so maybe a misplay there. You might consider potentially getting rid of Desperate Doctor or Shadow Devil, or both even, and putting in the two other units, the Ghost Prophet and the Soul Reaper. And if possible, what you could even do is actually go and get all 4 of those units. We have Desperate Doctor already, Shadow Devil. We could actually get the 4/4 Warlock, which would be an extremely useful composition to have for the later game. You can see now we're very, very close to losing our first match, and this is the time, and you can see I think we actually lost a match there on someone else's board. This is the time when you really need to make a change, and to do so you need econ. Fortunately for us, we have econ, so we make the call here to spend a bunch of that econ. We put another player on. I think we could potentially have even put Venomancer on there because it'll add to our Goblin Sin, but I think Ghost Prophet's stronger than Venomancer. I'm not entirely sure what our logic was there, but yeah, she is obviously a 5-cost unit, and that makes sense then to put her on. And it would be nice to get 4/4 Warlock synergy. If we put Venomancer on now, we'd be able to do that. But at some stage we'll have to put Venomancer on if we're going to go for 6/6 goblins. You can see now the fights are getting a lot more difficult. There's a high potential we lose this round actually, because they have a 3-star Tusk They had the Doom, and unless Ghost Prophet really pulls in here, and I don't think she's going to be able to do it for us, no. So we actually lose our first match now, and we lose our huge win streak that we had, and I think that's a bit unfortunate, but there were probably definitely plays that we could have done to prevented that from happening. So a bit unfortunate there, a bit unlucky. Okay, so we make some changes here. We put on the Venomancer. Venomancer is really important because he reduces armor, and that's an important ult to have, especially when you're playing against clustered teams. So you can see he's got an area of effect damage type thing that he does, or armor reduction thing that he does. And that's important when you have teams that are clustered together. So like knights as an example, and even frontline warriors sometimes are somewhat clustered. And if you can get the impact on there, and you can get your 6 goblin synergy, you then have a super strong team that's fighting against a team with weakened army, armor. And that's exactly kind of the idea of running this comp. Cool, we pick up our next 3-star unit, and that's very exciting for us. It does mean we have more space on the board, and so we can actually now run a 4-4 Warlock synergy. And at this stage, we should be quite comfortable. Our econ's reasonable. We can lift it up quite quickly. Within like 2 rounds, we can be back at 50. Our HP's at a good position, so we're still sitting in the 90s, which is positive for us. Unfortunately, as we know, our team is losing strength because the other teams are getting stronger. So relatively speaking, it's not as sustainable until we pick up that last unit. We now have 5 out of the 6 goblins, and we really need to pick up that Devastator for us to be in a happy position. You can notice though, we have managed to pick up most of our 3 stars. So we have a 3-star Heaven Bomber, we have a 3-star Ripper, and we have a 3-star Soulbreaker. The only other 3-star we really need is our Skybreaker to pull through, because we're not really looking to get Venomancer at a 3-star, but we do want him at a 2-star, which you can see we pick up now. So we get him to a 2-star level, which is great. So in terms of composition, we're actually in a pretty happy position right now. We're only 1 Skybreaker away from getting 3 stars. However, once we do that, we're going to have an open position on the board, and we're not going to have much to put in there. So we need to consider as well, once you do have a position on your board, you need to make sure you have a piece to put in there that's actually going to provide value. Otherwise, it's a bit of a wasted piece. And just putting another 1-star Shadow Devil, which is what we have on our bench at the moment, is not going to provide huge value for us. So that's something that we need to consider. Okay, this is another really close round. We only left with 2 pieces afterwards, and that was against Neutron, but he's now been knocked out on his board, so he's out of the game. And as you can see, if you look at the bottom players, a lot of them are actually quite close to being knocked out. So we're quite comfortable with that. I think everyone outside of the top 3 has less than 20 HP, so that's quite exciting for us. It's a good news story for us. And we pick up our 3-star Skybreaker. So we have the full range of 3-star units that we really want right now, and all we're doing is actually pushing to try and pick up that Devastator. We do pick up the helicopter though. The helicopter is useful, but it is not a replacement for Devastator. Although it can do nice damage, which you'll see now, it does make a difference, but unless you get it to 2-star, and even if you do, it's still not a replacement for a 1-star Devastator because of the synergy that unit provides. So far more important, I think, than picking up the helicopter would be to pick up the Devastator. That's going to be the make or break for the game for us here. And you'll notice, you know, you might think, well, at this stage we've got to win the game, right? We've got really high really high level units in our team. We've got 4 3-star units already, and we've got great HP, you know, compared to the rest of the lobby. We're really high, and we can pump econ up quite quickly. But you'd be amazed that if you don't find the Devastator, you'll see the impact it has once you get to the late game and the teams are really strong. Your team can fall apart quite quickly. But at this stage it looks like we're still in a pretty reasonable position. We do face off against Lykov though, and it looks like he might be out this round. He doesn't, he survives. Okay, so having a look, see, we've got a hunter team and a mage team and a warrior team still on the board, and we're going to need to face up against all of those now. So Alex Lave, Mazak, those are definitely ones to watch out for. I think Lykov's in trouble simply because he has no econ left, so there's not much changes unless he's completed his composition and he's in a really strong place. He might fall out sooner rather than later, so we'll see how that plays out as the game progresses. But what we're trying to do now is econ up again so that we can roll down and find that Devastator. Pretty comfortable, yeah.
Good. Time for a treat.
Helicopter also doing some damage. And we picked up some nice items there, as you can see. We managed to get the Dragonbone Ballista, and we actually add that onto Venomancer, and we get Jaded Pipe as well, which is going to help with magic resistance, I believe. So that's also a useful thing because we know there's a mage team in the comp. We're trying to pick up a 3-star Shadow Devil now, so we actually spend some of our cash. I think we might have rather been more patient and actually let our econ rise. There could have been potential to get to level 10, and if we get to level 10, we do have a 2-star Shadow Devil that we can throw on. We have another helicopter we can throw on, and realistically speaking, it might have made sense to try and econ up a bit more and focus more on the level, because then our likelihood of picking up the Devastator is even higher. Because right now all we're doing is we're searching for Devastator. We really need to pick up that Devastator now and complete this game. This game, if we pick up the Devastator, this game is ours to lose. We should 100% be winning this match if we pick up the Devastator. So all we can do is just be patient and hope that the RNG in the shop is on our side. And having scrolled through the shop the way we have, you'll notice also we skipped past quite a lot of Venomancers. There was potentially the opportunity to get to a 3-star Venomancer as well. So now we're up against Alex Lave, and as you can see, he's now got a much stronger team. He's got 3-star units on the front line, one of whom is a Whisper Seer, so they're going to be spawning 3-star units in the back, and a Taboo Witcher, which is also tricky for us. But I think our Ghost Prophet and our Helicopter do some good damage for us, and we managed to pull through there quite comfortably. So we're pretty much in a decent position at this stage. We did pass by another Soul Reaper, and that could have been an opportunity to pick up the Aegis's synergy as well, by maybe swapping out either Desperate Doc or Shadow Devil. At this stage we're one away from a 3-star Shadow Devil, so that's probably why we didn't do that. But as you can see, we've rolled all the way down. We've spent a lot of econ just rolling down trying to find the Devastator, and it hasn't been on our side. So you might say it's a bit unlucky, and that's the nature of the game. You know, you're going to win some, you're going to lose some, but at this stage, as you can see, we're getting really close to losing matches. As we mentioned, so Mazak goes out, and it's now just us and Alex Lave. But even in our current state, as you can see, we're winning quite substantially. We're doing really well, and you would expect that from this stage we win the game. Another Soul Reaper that we dropped past, and again that could also have been maybe a make or break difference. Pick up some mana there, put it on the Ghost Prophet, which is great. Ghost Prophet's really useful. If you could have 2-starred her, that would also be nice. But yeah, so there's not much we can change to the team comp at the moment. We haven't managed to find that last Shadow Devil, and we haven't managed to find our Devastator. So now we just got to play it by ear, and I think this is the game-changing moment. The player has a 2-star Siren, and the Siren ult comes in quite, the timing is really good, and you can see the difference within one round that made. Okay, once the Siren dies on their board, we win quite substantially. But on our board, we lose quite substantially the minute that the alt went off and actually turned all of our units into stone. They lost everything, and we lost quite badly there. So we've gone from 90 to 70 in a pretty short period of time, and that's something that's a little bit worrisome. So we need to be careful now, because can we lose this match? 100% we can. The other thing is, we took the gamble by rolling down. We rolled down all the way and we didn't pick up the Devastator. So again, that's just the nature of the Goblin Gamble. That's why it's called the Goblin Gamble. If you don't pick up the Devastator, you can see now the team's strength, even though we have so many 3-star units and we have a reasonably strong backline as well, quite a high DPS backline, it's still not carrying us as well as we would hope that it would. There might be some arguments here as well around positioning and how we position our team, and I think you'll see as we progress later into the game, positioning becomes key here. You can see how the opponent, or Alex, has actually repositioned quite nicely, and you know, we also need to make positioning changes to ensure that we manage to still survive. But the minute Siren comes in, we're in trouble. So you see Siren, I think Siren actually has an orb of refresh, because she ulted twice there in a very, very short period of time. So that's maybe something we could have checked on. The orb of refresh on Siren is going to be devastating for us, but we do lose again. And as you can see, our HP is dropping at a rapid rate. And all I'm doing now is I'm YOLO rolling. So as soon as I get econ, I'm spending it. I'm trying to figure out if we can pick up that Devastator, and in the absence of that, I'm trying different alternatives, which is to reposition. What I've done here is I've moved to the left hand side. The hope of this is, number one, that the ult from Desperate Doc, the ult from Shadow Devil, and also from Venomancer can actually target the area much better, because we're standing right next to them. So if we can get our ults off and put on the and hit them before they hit us, we have a much higher chance of winning that round. But as you can see there, they are now absolutely climbing through us, and because of the Whisper Seer and all those extra units that they have, the HP damage is extremely high. So we've moved from a substantially strong position to a fairly weak position, and now we're on a big lose streak. We don't have econ, and all we can do now is try and reposition and come up with alternatives. So the idea here was to spread out our units a bit more, move them a bit backline, so that if the Siren is stuck, he might not reach some of our end units on the end of the board, and also that if we have a spread out composition, it means that any ults that go off might not hit all of our units, and that's kind of the idea of spreading them out. That being said, it does have a little bit more effect, but their team is still way too strong, and they absolutely climb through us at a rate of knots there. So still, we're now basically actually swapped positions on the lobby. You can see we're now sitting with only 8 HP, and although we roll down again and we actually sell the unit just so that we can level up our helicopter and give ourselves a little bit more chance with the egg, we still do not have the Devastator. So we try our final reposition. We know that in all likelihood, if it doesn't work out now, we are going to lose this match. Coming from a 92 or 94 HP advantage all the way down to the bottom, this is like the perfect example of what can happen if the Goblin Gamble doesn't pay off. So you can see on his board, on our board, absolutely annihilated. So we did come second in that match, but I thought you guys would really enjoy this gameplay, simply because you can really see the impact, the difference. If you compare this video to our other Goblin Gamble video, the difference that the Devastator makes to winning or losing a match. That was our match to lose, and unfortunately we didn't pick up the piece that we needed. Okay guys, I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you learned something. Please drop a comment and let me know what you thought, and we will catch you in the next video. Don't forget to drop a like and hit that subscribe button. We'll check you again soon. Cheers.